back. It's me, Liam, joined by...
Leah.
Thank you. We're gonna do one more kind of special episode before we get back into the regular kind of format. And this week we're gonna be doing something we should have done a long time ago, which is the beginner's guide to anime. One of my friends at work pointed out to me that he wanted to listen to the podcast, but he didn't know a lot about anime. So he was asking if we had a beginner's episode, and I was like, oh, actually we don't. That's a good idea. So shout out to Mark for that idea. And yeah, hope you listen to this. But if you don't, that's okay, you know. Okay, and Oda Fest was this last weekend. I was there for the whole weekend, along with Veda, and then Becca and Leah joined us on Saturday, and it was pretty chill, right?
Yeah, I didn't actually get to really go to Oda Fest, unfortunately, because I was working, but I kind of stepped onto the grounds.
Right, I forgot about
Saw
that.
some cosplayers. It was almost enough.
We went to that ramen restaurant called Goro and Gun, though, and that was actually pretty good. A lot better than I remember it being.
Yeah, it was definitely better the second time we all went. Yeah, I agree. For any, if there's any Calgary listeners, it's on Stephen Avenue.
It's not that good hashtag value Japanese food I had actually in Japan, though. Rest in peace. Speaking of Japan, I've finally posted all the photos I took during my Japan trip, so if you want to look at those, you can go to Liam Matti Photography on Facebook. Matti is spelled with Matti. So if you want to see some photos, you can check them out there. And yeah, anything else you want to mention, Leah, before we get into the beginner's guide?
No, I haven't really had any anime adventures recently, so that's about it.
Cool. Well, it's just good to be recording again.
Actually, hold on, I do have a question. Did you guys watch any anime when you were at Oda Fest?
I didn't. I went into a screening room randomly, and they were playing like a live-action Japanese movie. It was like a death game. I can't remember what it was called, but you know, it was nice and weird in Japanese. I should really dig up the title for that.
The live action of
It wasn't Gantz.
Oh my God. Thank you. I was gonna say Gantz, right?
It was a lot different than Gantz.
Okay.
Okay. So just to get into our beginner's guide to anime, let's talk about how each of us started watching anime in the first place. We've probably mentioned part of it before, but it's worth bringing it up again. So what are the first experiences with anime that you can remember?
If you want to get really technical, it was like Pokemon and Hamtaro when I was like, really little, and like card captors and stuff. But I mean, that's when you're at an age where you don't even really realize it's anime. You just think it's like another cartoon, right?
Yeah, it's still like important though to document, I guess.
And after that, like I'd say majorly, when I started watching like Bionics on YTV, and it had the whole Inuyasha, Naruto, Death Note, the original Fullmetal Alchemist kind of lineup. So that's kind of how I got started there. Oh, and Escaflowne as well, and Monster Ranchers. Yeah.
For me it was a bit different because I didn't have access to cable for a lot of my childhood, but that wasn't enough to keep Pokemon away from me, because of course Pokemon was really popular at school. So yeah, I liked me some Pokemon. I would rent the tapes, and same with Digimon. I always liked Digimon better as a kid.
Me too.
I mean, it's hard to like Digimon now just because Pokemon got so much bigger than Digimon. Yeah, I rented, stuff from the video store for those when I could. Yeah, but that was kind of the same thing where I didn't quite realize it was anime.
Yeah.
The first kind of stuff I watched that I realized was Japanese animation was like the classic Studio Ghibli movies like My Neighbor Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service.
Oh, that's true, actually. Yeah, I owned
yeah.
Kiki's Delivery Service on VHS and watched it all the time as a kid.
Yeah, I definitely, like, I watched those with my parents, and I remember my dad saying how the animation was so good, and that was made by a Japanese people. And I was like, cool, and then we watched, like, more Studio Ghibli movies eventually, and then it became, you know, something I knew that was, like, a specific Japanese thing that was really good. And then I guess my first exposure to anime was also through that, like, YTV block, but in a different way, because I had these cousins, Brittany and Alyssa, that I would see every once in a while, and then they started telling me and my brother about this show called Inuyasha, because they were watching it on YTV because I had cable. So then they introduced me and my brother to that, and we got pretty into it, and like we started renting that from the video store. So that was super tight, because Inuyasha, you know, it's great. It's a great anime when you're like 10 to 12. I don't remember when I started watching it.
Yeah, I have a question for you, because I'm curious to know. When, I know this is different now because the world's kind of a different place, but when you first started watching anime and that kind of thing, did you like hide it from people? Did you like have a hard time finding people to talk about it with, or?
Yeah, I don't even remember if when I was introduced to Inuyasha whether I really knew it was anime. I think I like eventually just slowly figured it out. I didn't really hide it because I had like a couple friends at school that also knew and like watched some anime, like the popular ones. Like I just remember being in grade 7 and grade 8, and like Naruto wasn't hugely popular in the whole school, but like within the nerdy circle of people that I was in, like there's always like at least 2 or 3 people that like were pretty big into Naruto. And then in grade 8, like Death Note was the new thing. And I remember like going over to my cousin's house one time with my brother, and we were ready to like, you know, watch and talk about some Inuyasha, but then my cousins were just not into that at all because they were into Naruto then. And then me and my brother were like, Naruto, what's that? Why can't we watch Inuyasha?
Yeah, Inuyasha wins.
Yeah. I had like I had seen lots of Gundam stuff before, like seen the Gundam toys and rented a couple Gundam video games.
Yeah.
And I know my cousin was also watching probably Gundam Wing at the time. So I always wanted to get into that, but I never really could.
I always liked the Gundam Seed and stuff like that. But yeah, I know I remember like when I first started watching anime, like I didn't really hang out with anyone who watched it. And like my sisters weren't into it. So it was like for the longest time felt like my like secret shaming, like, you know, hobby that I loved. Like I remember like having something else open on the computer and like switching it when my sister would walk by and like that kind of thing. It's just so funny. Stupid when I look back on it, but I was just concerned. But then I met my friend Brenna and like just other people, and you know how it is when you meet other people who watch anime, and if you're a beginner to anime, you'll find this out. You find another weeb and you're just like, oh my god.
Yeah, thank God there's another one.
Like, instant friends.
I guess like I never tried to hide it from my parents, but there's definitely some time where like if I saw them like kind of watching the screen from the corner of the room, I'm like, oh, they're probably thinking this is weird, especially like when we were watching Inuyasha and stuff. But I think they would like think that about other stuff that I watched as a kid, not just anime. But yeah, I guess like once like past the Inuyasha phase, and then I just started like checking out other anime stuff from the video store, and then, you know, just started watching more and more. But it wasn't like I didn't really surpass my watching of other things. It was just like another genre I watched occasionally. Yeah, it wasn't till I met the 4Weebs crew and started hanging out with you guys more that I started like that's when it started like surpassing the like the non-anime stuff I watched. And that's when I started kind of discovering the more serious stuff, because before Like, I knew that, like, the Studio Ghibli movies and Akira were, like, good, serious movies, but then everything else was pretty, you know, it was like, there's Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, and Inuyasha. Oh, and Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
So I kind of, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it gets pretty complicated, but
I think that's kind of
TLDR, I started watching a lot of anime, and it was awesome.
And I think that's kind of like almost a good segue to kind of get into more like beginner stuff. Is I think, you know, a lot of people have that misconception that anime is either hentai or really super obnoxious, which those exist,
Really
but it's not
super
all there is
obnoxious
out
hentai.
there. Yeah, or both. But yeah, that's not all there is out there to anime, and I think that's what kind of like scares a lot of people off.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure there's lots of people that think Hollywood is all just like Michael Bay explosions and girls in bikinis, so.
yeah.
But nothing's ever so black and white.
So I guess if you're a beginner, it kind of just depends like how much you want to like immerse yourself in the right off the bat, which is why, you know, Studio Ghibli is a good place to start.
Yeah, I guess before we start getting to the specific recommendations, like writing this recommendation list, it's kind of made me wish I was able to like watch a lot of stuff when I was younger, like a lot of shows. I feel like the really famous ones, if I watched them now, like I would have enjoyed them more if I watched them earlier. But I don't know, you can't dwell in the past too much. But hopefully, between the two of us, we can.
So much anime now, or
no, I feel like I could have enjoyed. Like Hunter x Hunter, like I'm enjoying watching it right now, but I feel like I would have enjoyed it more if I was like watching it every week, like when I was in junior high, maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
Not to like bring the show down, but I haven't finished it yet, so maybe I'll change my mind on that later.
A better time for it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So hopefully with our combined experience, we can provide people with the ultimate beginner's guide for those people that are afraid to get into anime. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
We'll teach you we'll teach you where to start, and then once you get started with those small baby steps, then you can delve into the wonderful world of anime. Okay, so
I'm curious to see how our opinions will match or differ.
Yeah, I mean, I just have like a list with a bunch of animes on it, and then we'll just talk about whatever comes to mind. The first thing, which we already kind of mentioned, is anything Studio Ghibli. And I mean, this is like, the style is like kind of in between what people usually think of anime and like what most people think of just animation or a regular cartoon.
Yeah.
Like it's more realistic, I guess.
Yeah. And it's usually got more of like almost kind of like a Disney-esque vibe. Like if you had to pick a Disney of the anime world.
Yeah.
Who was it? You know, and Studio Ghibli movies, it's funny. I think they're a great place to start. I freaking love them all. I've talked to people before, like I've met people who are like, I don't like anime, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you probably just aren't watching the right stuff. I was like, do you like Studio Ghibli? And they're like, yeah, but that's not anime. And I was like,
bullshit.
Well, I don't know, because I don't know if this is true.
It's animation. It's animation made in Japan.
And that's what I said too, because they're like, Hayao Miyazaki doesn't even like anime or whatever. And I was like, okay, but yeah, it's still Japanese animation. Like, it's still like, you know.
Yeah, but Hayao Miyazaki is like pretty notorious for saying like controversial stuff and stirring the pot.
It's true. But his movies are so worth it.
Yeah, and you're saying they're like Disney movies, but I think they're like they're good for kids, but like adults can get a lot out of them too.
Oh, hands down. Like, and a lot of them are even better for adults. Yeah, when I say Disney, I don't mean kiddie. It's just they're very
in terms of popularity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Studio Ghibli movie?
I have this argument with myself like 24/7. If I really had to pick, it'd probably be Spirited Away, but that's kind of because it's the first one I ever saw. But I also really, really love Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke. If you're a girl and you You like a little bit of romance? Watch Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah.
If you just want something frickin' epic, just watch Princess Mononoke because it's really good. It's really pretty. Music's amazing. Like
Spirited Away, probably, like, when I think of like animation quality, I always think of Spirited Away, but my favorite is definitely Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
So I think I watched that at like the perfect age. Because I mean, I still am into like all the fantasy all the time, but like when I was a kid, it was even more intense, like just the Lord of the Rings all the time, and then seeing Princess Mononoke and there's swords and bows and arrows and monsters. And
great.
A good message about saving the environment, which is in most of his movies.
Very common undertone, not even undertone like, a lot of the time.
Environmental stuff or like female coming of age stuff, or a combination of the two.
So many strong female characters in the Ghibli movies. In a good way, though, not like the annoying, like, I'm trying to act like a badass kind of thing. No, like they're actually just well-rounded, strong female characters.
I like to say they're all wholesome.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah. So I think, Studio Ghibli stuff is always good to recommend to people that are like especially nervous to start or like especially biased against anime. If you can start them off with like Princess Mononoke. Yeah, I would say my second favorite's Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, although it's been a long time since I've seen it. I think I need to rewatch it.
I actually rewatched that one about like a couple weeks ago. Still just as good, but it's very long. Like, and a lot of his movies are long, but that one I found especially seems a little bit long.
Yeah, I do remember it being pretty long.
I wouldn't start with that one. It's still one of his best, but I wouldn't start with it.
Good point.
Yeah.
So next on the list, which kind of segues, well, I guess one last thing is Studio Ghibli. It's good. That's an easy one to recommend because it's just a movie. You don't have to be like, oh, watch this show. Like telling someone to watch an entire show can be a little daunting, especially if they aren't that type of person that'll like binge a show or watch a show regularly. Yeah. So movies are good for that, which segues into the next one on the list, which is Akira, which is a pretty well-known movie. Came out in the 80s. And it was a big deal when it came out. A lot of people say it like saved the Japanese like movie industry because it was like a big hit in the States, and like kind of like Princess Mononoke or other Studio Ghibli films, it really helped like Japanese animation get a foothold in North America. It made a lot more people aware of it, and it's also just like there's an incredible amount of detail that went into Akira. It's crazy. Have you seen it?
I've seen it, but it's been so long.
Yeah,
I was going to ask the one thing for Akira, though, as far as, being a beginner's anime. It wasn't overly kid-friendly, was it?
No, it's definitely, like, not for kids.
So, I kind of doubt we have kid listeners anyway, but if we do, guys, don't start there. You didn't hear it from us.
Or if you have kids. Yeah, Akira, it's especially good if you're already a person that likes deep thought-provoking movies or is like a film nerd. Akira's got a lot to dig into, like with themes of like nuclear holocaust and rapid industrialization. And yeah, we could spend a whole episode on Akira. But it's definitely like one of those movies that rewards additional viewings or internet research. Like the first time I watched it in junior high, I definitely had to spend some time on Wikipedia after. Back then it might not have been Wikipedia, but
I remember when I first watched it feeling like underwhelmed, and that's just because I think I was too young to understand what was happening, so I didn't appreciate or you get what's happening but you can't fully appreciate what the movie's trying to get across to you.
Although after watching End of Evangelion a couple times, Akira seems a lot simpler.
Like nothing new. You're like, oh yeah.
And I've got the Akira manga on my list of things to read, which apparently has a lot more good stuff in it. So if you like to read manga, that's another option.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that maybe I watched a bit too young, segues into the next thing, which is no stranger to this podcast, which is Ghost in the Shell from 1995. This is another movie. Yeah, when I watched this when I was young, it was definitely like, wow, this is pretty cool science fiction, but like it's a little slow paced and there's lots of complicated words.
Mm-hmm.
But that's definitely like another good, it was another big breakout hit, that like helped solidify anime in North America again.
Yeah, and I think that one, again, a good place to start for someone who does like more serious,
more complicated
thought-provoking action, that kind of thing. If you're someone who, we don't talk about these a lot on our podcast because we're not as into them, but, if you like the really fun, really like out there anime, then you might not really enjoy that one as much, right? So,
and don't worry, I've got fun recommendations
yes,
further down the
they
list.
are coming.
I've talked about Ghost in the Shell a ton on this podcast, obviously.
Yeah.
So the good thing about if you like Ghost in the Shell, then there's like there's other shows and movies that you can watch after that. So that's like one easy way to break into some anime. Like if you really like Ghost in the Shell, then you could perhaps watch the first season of Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, or watch the other Ghost in the Shell movies. So, speaking of 90s anime, the first show recommendation we have on the list, you probably heard of, and it's usually like if someone kind of demands a one-word answer for like an anime recommendation, I say Cowboy Bebop.
Really? See, I find it interesting I do and I don't find it interesting that it's on there. It is one of the first I watched. It's just very stylized.
I think my usual sell is like, have you seen Firefly? And then if they say yes, I'll be like, it's like anime Firefly. And if they haven't, I'm like, it's like a space western sort of.
Yeah. No, it's freaking amazing. Everyone's got to see it. Like anyone who watches anime, I think needs to see it. It is one of those animes though where you're gonna appreciate it more after you've already finished it. Like, you're going to enjoy it while you watch it, and then you're not going to really realize how freaking amazing it was until you're done, and you're like, look back, and you're like, oh, wow. That was great.
Just watch it now before they release a... Sorry? The movie?
I said the movie. The movie you can watch pretty much any time during the series. It doesn't take place after the series. It takes place somewhere in the middle.
I was going to ask you if you think they should watch it like after they finish it or before or just in the middle.
You could watch it in the middle. I feel like once all the characters are introduced, you're good to watch it. Then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't really...
that makes sense.
Yeah. So just wait for, Faye, Edward, and everyone to be in it, and then you can watch it whenever. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, Cowboy Bebop's just like solid in so many aspects. You can't really go wrong with it.
And Firefly's a really good thing to compare it to, actually.
Yeah.
In both its kind of tones and also just like it's almost like weird cult following.
Yeah.
Like you just love it. So.
But it's different enough.
Yeah.
Like you can't like watching Firefly. You won't be like, this is just a Cowboy Bebop ripoff.
Oh God, no. Like they're not the same. It's just a good like tonal comparison.
So if sci-fi isn't your thing, the next one on the list could be a good alternative, which I've also talked about a decent amount, which is Berserk. For the one from 97, not the one from 2016. I actually got through all of the 2016 Berserk and half of the 2017 Berserk, and yeah, this is pretty bad. But 97 Berserk is a solid anime. It doesn't quite have like the animation budget that Cowboy Bebop had, but it's just really good like dark fantasy storytelling. This one is like definitely 18 plus though, so don't show it to your kids. Cowboy Bebop, like I don't know what the actual rating is, but I would give that maybe like a PG-13 or a 14.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad. But yeah, Berserk definitely 18 plus. And it also, if you like reading the Berserk manga, is like the 97 anime is good, but the Berserk manga is like a 10 out of 10. And yeah, Berserk, just if you like dark, serious fantasy, like Game of Thrones. It's really good. The main character, Guts, is kind of one of the original, like, sad sword boys that, like, so many other anime characters are kind of reminiscent of, like Inuyasha or that guy from Bleach or Cloud.
Ichigo.
Yeah.
You know what? Just to throw it in there, we're talking about Bleach, because if you start getting into anime, you're going to hear about Naruto, you're going to hear about Bleach, and you're going to hear about One Piece. They're all extremely long, like very long. But I don't
yeah,
think
I didn't put those on the list.
No, but I still think, at least for like the first couple seasons of Bleach, are still worth it. That was one of the like shows I started watching when I first started getting into anime, and I really enjoyed it. Like it was the first like 2 arcs are really good, so I actually think the beginning of Bleach is worth watching. As far as Naruto goes, we'll leave that up to you listeners. It's more one of those over the top kind of
Naruto's in a weird spot.
But you know
it's
what?
It's kind of like One Piece, because it's been going on for so long. It has such a huge fan base. You can't deny it. But I do have like a shonen type show on here that on the list. So wrapping up with Berserk. I don't know if I have much, or if a TV show is like a little daunting for you, there are like Berserk movies that came out in 2013 that are pretty decent. The whole Berserk thing, it gets a little complicated. So like the first or like the second kind of part, the prequel part of the manga is called the Golden Age arc. So the 97 show does the Golden Age arc. And then the movies that came out in like 2012, there's 3 movies. They also did the Golden Age arc. They just redid it with like, it was a mix of 3D and traditional animation. But they went like a little bit further than the show did. And then Berserk 2016, which was like summer 2016, those like pick up after the Golden Age arc where the movies left off. But it's like all 3D and it's very poorly handled, so don't watch that one. We did have an episode on that, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think the movies are definitely like, you get the same kind of experience as the 97 show in terms of storytelling. I'd say like overall the 97 show is probably a little bit better, but if you really love it, it's worth like watching both and reading the book. That's what I did, and yeah, I've enjoyed it every time. And by enjoyed it, I mean like it was very emotionally distressing by the end because it's very intense. So I mentioned shonen anime, so the next one I have on the list is Full Metal Alchemist. And I guess for the sake of this, we could mean like either Brotherhood or the original, but leaning towards Brotherhood.
I can just get right into this. First off, though, in case there's any listeners who don't know what shonen is, Shonen Jump, it's a really popular, what do you call it? It's like a
magazine, pretty much.
Magazine, kind of production company in Japan, and it's usually aimed more towards like younger males, young adults, young teen boys.
So a lot of like the really popular animes that you hear about most of the time are animes that came from manga from Shonen Jump. So
that said, like something like Fullmetal Alchemist, I find is actually very you'll watch a lot of shonen where you'll get to know it, and you're like, oh my god, is this ever shonen? Because it's very, how do you describe it? Like
going back to watch Inuyasha. Going back to watch Inuyasha as an adult, it's definitely like, this is definitely for a younger audience. And Full Metal Alchemist, you can get that too, but like I can still like really enjoy Full Metal Alchemist a lot more than I could with Inuyasha.
Full Metal Alchemist is different than a lot of shonens, I find, because it doesn't have any really long-winded arcs that take forever to get through. It's just like bang, bang, bang story the whole time through, and it's got... I'm biased.
To an extent.
Brotherhood is one of my favorite animes ever. It's got a good story, it's got, like, it's funny, it's dramatic, it's got, a bit of action in it, romance in it, like, just, kind of a bit of everything, and it's just done really well.
It's a really tight action adventure anime that like kind of makes you feel young again watching it, maybe.
And so there was the first Fullmetal Alchemist, 2 seasons. It was lightly based off the manga, and it was good, but Brotherhood was better.
Yeah.
And Brotherhood is the anime they made years later, and it's pretty much like page for page with the manga, I do believe.
Mm-hmm.
I personally haven't read it, but that's what I've been told.
Yeah, I think like if you should start with Brotherhood, and then if you finish it and just can't get enough, then you can just watch the original one, and then it'll be the same for like the first half, and then they'll like change the story. And like it's probably not as good, but I find like the way they end it with the Conqueror of Shambhala movie was pretty good.
That was cool. That was a really good end. Yeah, if you do watch the original Fullmetal Alchemist, make sure you watch the movie that completes it, which is the Conqueror of Shambhala. Really good.
Yeah, otherwise you'll be like, that ending sucked.
Oh, you're gonna be pissed. Yeah, but yeah, no, Brotherhood, I recommend it to like everyone and anyone who ever mentions kind of having slight interest in anime, because it's very like, you don't have to be someone who's into anime to like it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. But
yeah, Brotherhood's just. Yeah, and if you like steampunk, like stop the episode now and just go watch Brotherhood.
Yeah,
because it's like, yeah, it's fairly steampunk. Yeah. So I guess moving along, the next ones I see on the list, I think they're kind of ones that have a few more prerequisites to maybe watch. So I'm just gonna skip a bit down to, I wrote down Little Witch Academia, which I just finished. This one, I guess. This one can be a little confusing, perhaps, because in like 2013, there's like a 30-minute just OVA animation special on Netflix that was made through like a Japan Young Animators project, like a government-sponsored thing, and it was a big hit. So this 2 years later, in 2015, the studio did a Kickstarter to make a sequel to it. And they raised a lot of money, so the sequel came out. I think it's called Little Witch Academia, The Magical or Enchanted Parade or something. And that one's 50 minutes. So both of those are really good. And then this spring, or starting in the winter season, 2017, they started an official show for Little Witch Academia, and the story went back to the beginning. And yeah, it was really good. It's just like, you know, if you're a Harry Potter fan, you'll probably really like Little Witch Academia. It's like definitely got more of a PG rating, but I'm an adult and I enjoyed it a lot. It's just like a good wholesome anime about friendship and magic and witches. And yeah, it's done by Studio Trigger, which is one of my favorite studios, so the animation's really good.
Oh, yeah.
I think Netflix has the first 13 episodes of the show right now, but there's 25 total, so those will probably be out on Netflix by the end of the summer if we want to be all legal about everything. And yeah, you could start with just the show, or you could start with those OVAs first. Though I guess if you're a little hesitant as to whether you'd like it, just check out the first OVA, because it's just like one 30-minute contained story, and if you like that, then maybe watch the second one, and if you like that, watch the show. Just watch it all. It's all worth it. Do you have any other recommendations that come to mind?
Yeah, I have a couple for more if there is the bubbly fans out there, or
let's
like
get
that.
into it.
One that people have always loved, the females, and this is a shoujo one, and again, shoujo is targeted at girls, it's not shonen. Or in High School Host Club.
Oh.
It's just really fun and silly, and I feel like it's still a good start. Like, if you really like that, then you're probably gonna like getting into some of the more like
romantic comedy,
expressive anime. Like they're like,
okay.
You know, yeah. and romance anime too. Yeah.
I guess there isn't a lot of that on this list.
No,
it's
that's
all
why I was like, I need to female this up a little bit.
This list is very biased towards my tastes, but this podcast is all of our opinions, so whatever.
Yeah, I think a good shonen one to start with also is Noragami.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It's just got good humor, good adventure, a bit of fantasy to it. I think it's just a solid place to start, and it's not very long. Like the first season's only 12 episodes, I think.
Yeah, and that one's like fantasy mixed in with modern day Japan, so.
Yeah, which is pretty fun. What else? Oh gosh, I had one and I'm blanking. Crap, what was it? Oh, Code Geass. If you're up for...
yeah. Do you think that's a good one to start if you aren't really familiar with mecha? I think it is.
I think it is. Personally.
Yeah, if you really like political dramas.
Yeah, but it still has like stylized, like it's very stylized. It's very anime, very
people talking and very dramatic voices.
So like if you really wanted to just like dive into anime, I think Code Geass would be a good one. And I think it is a good way to start with mech anime because things like Gundam Seed and Gundam Wing and all the Gundams are very like dry, political heavy, and a lot of people would probably lose interest quite quickly. But Code Geass kind of has like an overall little bit of everything. Like a lot of the shows we've kind of already mentioned on this list, it's like you got to watch the shows that have a little bit of everything so you kind of know what direction you want to go into, right?
Go back to mecha in a sec, but before I forget, would you recommend Monster to non-anime people? No?
No. Monster was very good. Monster was very different.
Okay, that's fair. What about Erased?
Erased? Oh yeah, Erased I would if you like the Goonies. And kind of like time travel-ish stuff. Oh yeah, watch Erased. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
I just thought
we
should throw some non like action oriented shows in there.
Yeah, Erased was good.
There's so much anime.
So much.
So back to my mecha tangent. If you like the more like actiony stuff and like want to see just huge bombastic robot fights, I would recommend Gurren Lagann. How much of that have you watched?
Not a lot, like the first like 5 episodes or something like that.
Right. But you liked it, right?
Oh, I really liked it. I just don't really know why I didn't continue. I just haven't really had much time, so... You're
a failure of a weeb.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Gurren Lagann, it's also done by Studio Trigger, the same people that did Little Witch Academia. Gurren Lagann, it was done by Studio Gainax, and a lot of the people that made it eventually formed Studio Trigger. Good, that was a close one there, I saved myself. So yeah, Gurren Lagann has like a really epic hero's journey story with very over-the-top animation and action, because it's animated anyways, so why does it have to look realistic? Let's just have like a huge fucking drill, and yeah, it's awesome. I don't know what else I would say about that. Similar tangent of like over-the-top action. I feel like a lot of people, even if they didn't watch anime, they would probably be like fairly familiar with stuff like Dragon Ball Z or Ultraman or, Godzilla. So I think if you kind of know about that stuff or just general geek iconic pop culture, like One Punch Man would be a good one to check out. Would you agree? Yeah. One Punch Man's also an easy sell because it's only 12 episodes and it's like... It's comedy, so that's like that's a good sell for most people. Yeah. So One Punch Man is basically like making fun of like action anime tropes because the main character is this.
That's good to know if you'll find out if you're into really like expressive anime or not. So
yeah, and it's really funny. There's lots of One Punch Man fans out there.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's really great.
Like the main character. he's just this bland superhero that can defeat pretty much every enemy with one punch. And yeah,
and he makes you go like, wait, then what's the show about? But like, just watch it. It's so funny. It's good.
Oh yeah, one thing I was gonna mention earlier, if you watch something like Cowboy Bebop or like Gurren Lagann and you really liked it, then like a good way to like find the next anime recommendation for yourself is to look at other works that the director has done or other works that the studio's done.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of Gurren Lagann, you could look at like the creators of it and seen what else they've made, like Little Witch Academia or Kill la Kill. I'll get back to Kill la Kill later because that's kind of in the next section.
Mm-hmm.
Or with Cowboy Bebop, another show that's been on my list for a while to check out is Samurai Champloo. I think that's by
yeah.
Is that by the same guy?
I don't know if I'd start with Samurai Champloo though.
Yeah, you wouldn't start with that one, but
yeah.
like, you can just follow like trace the
yeah. But very similar. Okay. If it's not the same, it's very close.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. One last one I would like.
Sorry, I was just gonna say the Cowboy Bebop. If you like that and you want more comedy, you could go to Space Dandy, which is made by the same guy. So you can kind of like follow the works of the other people that worked on it. That's one way to make good like recommendations for yourself.
Yeah, and like the one site we always use is My Anime List. Go on there. Mm-hmm. You might be a little overwhelmed, but it'll help you. No, what I was saying before, kind of the last one that I would recommend people to start with, especially if they have like no anime experience, is Eden of the East.
I haven't seen that. It was
kind of one of the first death game animes, but it takes place in modern society. It's good. It's funny. The animation is different. It's kind of like a weird hybrid of usual anime and Studio Ghibli kind of. The series is 12 episodes and it has 2 movies, I think, but they were all really good. I really enjoyed them. So,
okay. For those who don't know, Death Game, it's kind of like what the Hunger Games is.
Yeah.
But like Japan thought of it first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so the guy who directed Cowboy Bebop, Watanabe Shinichiro, he also did Samurai Champloo. So
he did. Okay, yeah, that doesn't.
He also did Death Parade.
Oh,
he was an episode director on Death Parade.
Would
you say Death Parade's a good one to start with?
I think you could start with Death Parade, but you're gonna set your standards so high.
It's pretty self-contained.
Oh, it's so amazing, so amazing. One of my favorite animes ever.
So back to our kind of One Punch Man being parody thing. If you perhaps watched Cardcaptor or Sailor Moon as a kid, and that those are part of the magical girl genre, another good like serious one to watch would be Madoka Magica.
Yep. Like a deconstruction
I know we've had this conversation.
Girl. Yeah.
I don't know. There's some arguments as to whether it's a deconstruction or not.
Yeah.
That people get snobby about, but at the end of the day, it's still another good magical girl show.
I mean, I technically haven't seen it, so I can't actually give my opinion. So
I know we've just told you to go watch it so many times.
I know. It'll happen one day, I swear. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. I don't want to spoil much with Madoka, but sorry, excuse me. There's I didn't watch a lot of magical girl stuff growing up, and I still really liked Madoka.
Yeah, because that was my problem too, is that I'm not into the magical girl stuff, but I've heard it's pretty great.
And it's only 12 episodes too, so.
Yeah, listeners, you'll find most animes are around 12 to 14 episodes, but then you do get the ones that go to around 50. If it does quite well. And then you have some shonen ones like Naruto and Bleach and One Piece that are on 500 episodes. So
I find most of my favorite shows, hardly any of them go past 24 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, 24, the 2 seasons is pretty standard.
Most of my favorite ones are actually around that 24, 25 mark. I think a lot of the time 12 ends up being either too short or just right.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely depends
Yeah.
the show.
So Madoka Magica, one more kind of like parody one maybe. Like if you're a little familiar with the mecha genre, or this one's kind of in the same vein as Ghost in the Shell or Akira. It's like more for like serious movie buffs maybe. Is Neon Genesis Evangelion. Can't leave that one out, right? I think this one, it's like I'm still kind of unsure as to whether it should be on the list, but it's just like really.
I don't think it's a great one to start with, but I get why it's on here because it's such a
I think
like
it's good.
iconic
Maybe if you
anime.
like if you watched some mecha stuff as a kid, but then kind
Yeah.
of fell out with it.
Yeah.
This one's good because it's just like a really interesting take on the mecha genre, but it's also like there's a lot of like psychological, interesting stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
probably
think
like maybe not a good first anime, but like a good
yeah, I think
second
it'd totally
one.
depend like your taste. Some people might watch that as their first one and be like, "Oh my god," and then other people will be like, "Well, I'm done after 3 episodes," you know. So
Yeah, if you want like if you want a show that like really rewards like digging into it a lot and like spending some time with it, like if you're a film study student perhaps,
hmm
then I could recommend Evangelion for you. It also gets like a little complicated because the original show was what is it 95 something
it's
like
gotta
that.
be something around that.
So yeah, it goes up to 26 episodes, but episode 25 and 26 are very controversial, and I probably won't get into it right now, but it
No.
had like a really, really polarizing ending. So then that ended up being the director ended up making a movie after that kind of like gave it a proper ending. But the movie came out in two parts, Death and Rebirth. Death is all recap footage of the show, but it like does a good job of telling the story. And then Rebirth is the new footage. Sorry.
So
It's the
complicated.
new footage. uh, but the new footage is like, it's stuff that's happening in the real world, kind of at the same time as what's happening in episode 25 and 26, which is in the main character's head. It doesn't make sense. The director is one of those guys that makes things purposely confusing,
Mm.
and it's kind of a meme, but it's worth checking it all out and then watching the end of Evangelion, which is also Death and Rebirth. But just like be ready to do some like Wikipedia black holing after you watch it.
There you go.
You know.
Yeah.
And then yeah, we'll get some in like 2009. I think the director started doing remakes of them, which are called Rebuild of Evangelion. So the first 3 of those are out now, and it's gotten like just as confusing as End of Evangelion, and they've changed the storyline. And the 4th one will come out, who knows when, someday eventually. But it's it's a good like once you watch that, then there's a lot of sick like anime meme pages that you can follow. So if you're into that sort of thing. If you're into like depressed 14-year-old teenage boys, then it's a great anime to check out.
One for you. Yeah.
That's the meme with Evangelion. It's like I watched Evangelion, now I'm chronically depressed. Hey.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that one's kind of a contentious anime recommendation, but I liked it, so maybe you will too. So the next section I've got is animes that you shouldn't watch that you shouldn't watch as your first anime.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I have on here, which I kind of mentioned before, is Kill la Kill.
Yeah.
Which before I even watched it, and like I had seen some anime before, it didn't really look appealing to me because the characters are in like very weird, like revealing outfits, and the show looks kind of pervy.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to pervy shows in a second. But
yeah, you kind of have to have Kill la Kill's great. I haven't finished it yet, but yeah, I agree with you, Liam. Like, I think the more anime you've watched, the more you'll appreciate Kill la Kill because you'll kind of realize some of the
it has a lot of references
it's trying to get at. Yeah, like all the references and that sort of thing. But it's definitely worth watching once you get a little more like immersed.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it all the time. It's my favorite, so It's also anime. It's like the same team as Gurren Lagann and Little Witch Academia. So blah blah blah. The next one I have on the list I put on here is Attack on Titan. I don't think that's a good anime to start with.
Why?
I feel like I should put it on the list because it's so popular.
Yeah.
I feel like I have talked to some of my friends who tried to like check out Attack on Titan without watching a lot of other anime, and they like didn't really like it. I think it's because Attack on Titan, it's like very melodramatic and very intense and like stylized in a specific way that if you haven't seen anime before. Oh, okay.
They've never watched it and they loved it, but oh, sorry, I got dogs barking. But I still agree with you though. I don't think it's like the best place to start. Simply, because of how melodramatic it is, and
and it's like really brutal and intense.
Yeah.
So I think if you start with something that does have some action, like Full Metal, then like that'll be a better lead into a Attack on Titan. And Attack on Titan definitely has like a huge fan base that's like very obsessed with the lore and lots of merch. And it's just like so anime heavy that I think it's just like if you're starting with Attack on Titan, you're kind of like diving straight into the deep end with no life jacket. So
that's true.
Like if you've watched some anime beforehand, it'll like give you a better appreciation for Attack on Titan.
I think that's actually a good way to say it, because I mean, I really don't think there's nothing in particular stopping you from watching that first, especially if you like intense things. But yeah, I just agree. I just think it's one better left for a little bit later, basically. Yeah.
So the next one I have on the list is also intense, but in a much different way, and that's Keijo.
Oh my god!
I only put this one on the list just because it's hilarious, and I've watched it recently. Like I watched it, and it was a pretty fun ride, but it's kind of like Kill la Kill. If you aren't like already kind of acclimatized to anime and the tendency to have, you know, like busty girls every once in a while, like Keijo is not like. Don't show Keijo to anyone who doesn't know what anime is.
Yeah, because this is the problem. If you don't watch anime, Keijo is you remember that hentai obnoxious stereotype I was talking about at the beginning of this episode? Yeah, it's, you know,
I mean, I guess I'm using
busty, like, you know, over the top. It's a sports anime, blah blah blah. Like it just. If you're into anime and you're into that, you'll totally get it, and it still might not be your thing, but you'll still be like, oh god, that's hilarious and great. If not, you might be like, what the fuck?
I was kind of just saying Keijo is like, I'm kind of using it as like the umbrella term for like a lot of ecchi anime.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's kind of on the same level.
Thank you.
It's kind of like comparable to like R-rated comedy movies or like Seth Rogen movies where they're really like the humor is really dirty, but you know, lots of people watch them and think it's pretty funny. So maybe this is like the anime equivalent. Like they're not bad necessarily, but, you know, we all like watching trash. Trash can be done well. Just it's not it's like diving into the opposite deep end of the pool.
Like definitely
getting smothered in big anime titties and suffocating. And Keijo also has like anime references in it too, so
it's So
that's my short like blanket statement for ecchi anime. They're definitely like, it can be rewarding like watching a few of them, but like it's not that great if you don't have a lot of anime experience. I'm sure Mackenzie could go on and on about ecchi anime.
Yes.
You know, it's that trash, but it's that trash that we like. It's good trash. Some of it is anyways.
There is good trash. Yeah, that's a thing.
Are there any other shows you can think of that are not good animes to start with? Oh, don't let anyone tell you that Boku no Pico is an anime.
No, no.
That's all you need to know. We don't need to talk about that anymore.
Nope. School Days, because School Days is one very controversial in the weeb universe, because some people think it's fucking amazing, and then there's us and a lot of other people who are like,
just
worst thing ever. don't do it.
Those people are just trolls.
Yeah.
I think.
No. Not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of anime. We've watched a lot of bad anime on this podcast.
Yeah, but the thing is it's all usually pretty clearly bad, so I hope people don't actually go look for it.
I guess moving on to the next section where I just wrote down general anime advice. I guess we've kind of mentioned a lot of that as we've gone on. I mean, everyone's kind of journey with anime is going to be their own unique thing, and everyone has their own tastes.
Yeah.
And there's about as much diversity in anime as there is with a lot of other movies, like in North America. So there's a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, like don't knock it till you try it. And people, again, there's so many stereotypes out there about what anime is, and it's really just all so false.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to watch things that you don't think, like, that you might not actually, like, seem like your taste. Like when one of our past episodes where I watched Love Live, and that was like a schoolgirl idol project anime, and I actually, like, kind of loved it. So, and I'm usually I like my sci-fi, fantasy, adventure animes, more serious, that sort of thing, but that doesn't mean you can't like other things. Like, Liam, you like some magical girl animes, right? So, I mean,
yeah.
You never know. There's something for everyone. And you know what? If you are one of the listeners who likes the really weird shit, good on you. Keep finding it. Have fun.
Yeah, and you can always,
shame.
Try and find local weebs in your area and ask them for advice. Or you could reach out to us and ask us specific questions if you need
recommendations. All of our my anime lists are linked below.
That's true.
So you guys can go and click through all of our lists. You can see what we watched, what we liked, didn't like, what we're gonna watch, all that stuff. So
mine is fairly up to date.
Yeah, mine's pretty up to date, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that concludes our beginner's guide to anime. It's about as much as we could cover in 50 minutes. We could talk about it all day, really.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully, show this episode to your friends if you need help convincing them. Or take what we've told you and use that on your friends to convince them to join the wonderful world of anime. And I guess now when we show this podcast to people who aren't anime fans, we can always tell them, be like, oh, you can listen to this episode. It's our beginner's guide. Yeah.
Oh, one thing we didn't talk about. Hold on, and this is important. Sub versus dub.
Oh, yeah. That's important.
That's kind of really important.
That's also kind of a controversial topic.
Yeah.
A lot of people
My outlook is whatever you prefer. I mean, I prefer subs, but I started watching dubs, and you know what? Some of them really aren't that bad. Some of them are awful, but some of them are actually pretty good. Like the Brotherhood dub, really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so, and I mean...
Yeah.
If that's what's going to make the difference between you watching an anime or not, then just pick English if it's easier for you. But
yeah, like if you need help convincing someone, just, if it's going to get them to watch anime, it's better than them not watching anime if they just watch the dub. But a lot of time, like the more direct like experience from whoever wrote the story will be through the sub to a certain extent. So, and it also helps with your Japanese skills. So.
Yeah. Also, a lot of the best animes out there aren't available dubbed. They're not in English. So, if listener, you find you're really getting into things, like chances are, like you're just going to have to explore the world of subbed anime because so much of it is so good, but never.
Yeah, well, a lot of it was dubbed so long ago that it just wasn't as good. And...
Yeah, or if Funimation didn't get it, then no one's getting it. But,
like the Kill la Kill dub.
Yeah, exactly.
That one's not so good. But if it'll get you to watch it, I won't bash dubs.
No.
But there's the one case I can think of where the dub is better is Garzy's Wing.
Oh yeah.
Garzy's Wing is really boring without the dub, but that's a story for another day.
Yep, another episode. I guess just the last thing I have for listeners as far as beginning guide, because I'm just forgetting all these things. Netflix has anime. There is Crunchyroll. There is Funimation. Some of these things you need subscriptions for, obviously.
It's also the Amazon one. There's the Amazon one called Amazon. I want to say Amazon Go, but I'm not sure. But they have some anime. It's kind of a mess right now with like legal streaming sites because they all like fight over the popular titles, and I think it'll be better if they just like if they each kind of have their own niche. Like if one of them is like the old school one, so that's like the place. Like if the Amazon one, that's the place where you can go to stream like Berserk and Evangelion and Cowboy Bebop, and then Crunchyroll is the one that has like all the new simulcast ones, and but you know. We don't always get what we want.
No, we don't.
If you have Netflix in Japan, then then you're fine. You just need to understand Japanese. So a couple notes on next episode. We're going to go back to our somewhat regular format. It'll be different, obviously, because there's 2 of us instead of 4. But we're still going to do the review of a good anime and a bad anime. And we're just going to switch off every week with the picks. And both of us are going to watch 2 episodes of the good and 1 episode of the bad.
Because we don't want to be mean to ourselves.
Yeah, we're going to give ourselves that little present.
Yeah.
So we decided that I'm going to pick for next week. So that means next week, Leah will have the good and bad animes for the week after. There are a couple more special episodes planned down the line, but I'm not sure when they're coming out yet. So, with that being said, my theme for next week, I guess you would call it trippy, cyberpunk, confusing cyberpunk. I'm not quite sure. The good anime is Serial Experiments Lane.
Oh, I've heard it. I always want to watch that.
Yeah. And the bad one is Chaos Head, and it's spelled in a very weird way. One
I've always heard of,
Yeah, so Serial Experiments Lane. Lane Iwakura, an awkward and introverted 14-year-old, is one of the many girls from her school to receive a disturbing email from her classmate Chisa Yomoda, the very same Chisa who recently committed suicide. Lane has neither the desire nor the experience to handle even basic technology. Yet, when the technophobe opens the email, it leads her straight into the Wired, a virtual world of communication networks similar to what we know as the internet. That's all I'll read of that for now.
Yeah.
I have seen this, but it was a while ago, and it's like it's kind of like Akira, A Ghost in the Shell. Like it's one of those ones that requires a lot of Wikipedia afterwards. So I'm looking forward to watching part of it again. This one was a pretty it was kind of like ahead of its time, maybe. It also feels like it was also a big influence on the Matrix, or that period. It came out around the same time as like Ghost in the Shell and the Matrix. So very like late 90s cyberpunk. And Chaos Head. Shibuya, Japan, 2008. Takumi Nishijo, a high school student at the private Sume Academy, one day hears about the new gen murders that have been occurring around the city. Although dismissing the subject because it doesn't involve him, Takumi begins to experience strange mishaps around him, from a horrific picture he received while on his PC to a mysterious pink-haired girl standing at the murder scene. So I haven't heard a ton about Chaos Head, but it does have enough similarities to Serial Experiments Lane, and from the pictures and stuff that I've seen, it does kind of look like a shitty Serial Experiments Lane. Maybe we'll find out. Serial Experiments Lane has a 7.99 on Mal.
It's pretty good.
And Chaos Head has a 6.57.
Not so good.
That's kind of low for... Yeah. So hopefully we'll record next week. That's the plan.
Yeah. Hopefully so.
Okay, thanks for listening, weebs, or normal people that may soon become weebs.
Yes.
We hope.
In which case, tune in later.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye.